I mean, look, I was seriously motivated. I had a lot of pain in my life just from that job. And so I just kept on chasing the rabbit down the hole, and I kept on going after it and taking action. I mean, I really what it come down to is I took massive action out in the actual real estate game. I didn't just sit on the computer in a mastermind and go to classes. I did that too. But I did that in combination with getting out there and taking action. And I think it was just like a combination of those two things: educating myself, taking action on the education. It clicked in my head.
All right, guys, here we go now. It is time to unlock more doors to deals. We're real estate investors here. We're real estate agents here, and we all have one thing in common. We believe that we can. We can live the life of our purpose. We can create financial freedom. We can build a better life for those that we love, and we can live the life of our dreams. I don't care if you're trying to do your first deal or your 500th this year. You can get to the next level, and we're here to help. Welcome to Doors to Deals. I'm your host and founder, Jim Manning. Today's episode can be found on doorstodeals.com/027. And it's all about how Ryan Inc. went from homeless to financial freedom in just a few short years. Ryan specializes in syndicated apartment complex investing, but he also has experience doing single family investing as well. So no matter what type of investing you're doing, there's content and lessons in this episode for everyone. I in particularly love how he breaks down his offer phases that he goes through when he invests in deals. And he also talks about a ratio for offers to getting deals under contract. That's great for you to be aware of as well. So make sure that you stay tuned for the entire episode. And before we jump in, let's go into the iTunes review of the week.
This week's iTunes review comes to us from KCT, titled Awesome, 5 stars. Kay writes, I've been a part of the community for a year and it's already changed my outlook on investing. I love all the information in this podcast and can't wait to hear more. Kay, thank you for your review. Jim, back to you.
Kay, thank you so much for leaving that iTunes review. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate that husband of yours, Bryant, so much. You guys are such a valuable part of our Three Doors network. I just want to throw some love to you guys. Thank you for the review. And there's nothing that gets me going more than seeing kind of beginner investors like you guys were when you came into the group, and seeing you guys have so much success like you are today. So I appreciate you guys. And hey, let's get going on this interview. All right, guys. Hey, Jim here. I have a individual that is a friend of a friend. I'm hoping to kind of get to know him better because our mutual friend is, I just think so highly of, and he's the type of guy, if he recommends somebody, like, I need to listen and get to know this individual better. So Ryan Inc. is here. Did I say your last name right?
Yeah, as good as anybody does. So.
All right, good deal, man. So Ryan is, we'll kind of get into his background and everything like that. If you like it all, what he has to say and kind of want some more information about it, I think cashflowdadlife.com is your website, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. So we have, we're recording this a little bit groggier than normal. We're recording this the day after the election. And for those of you listening to this on replay, it's about a six month lag or so before the episode drops. But it's interesting because Ryan texted me earlier and he was like, hey, can we move this back? And I'm getting going a little bit slow. And I said, oh, we can't because we record this live for our members. Sorry, we already sent everything out. So we're going to kind of power through this and make it happen. But I always find it interesting, Ryan, I don't know if you've noticed this, but the amount of stress and anxiety that everybody gets around election time, just maybe because it's like the uncertainty. And like everybody gets all like stressed and all messed, like a tight wound, and like we get people like tenants, and we get sort of like kind of crazy reactions to things that we just don't normally get. Then another 4 years later, we go through it again. And here we are the day after the election, and in St. Louis, it's a 70-degree November day, which is like so rare. The sun's shining, like life goes on, doesn't it? Like it's like crazy to me, like how we get all wound up with all this fear and all this stress and all this anxiety. And yet life always tends to kind of work out. Like, no matter what the results are. And we don't know at this point, right, who's going to end up winning. But what do you think on that, Ryan?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of people get stressed out, but really, none of these candidates are going to do anything for you personally that, that you can't control on your own. Like you can, I think the big problem for a lot of people is that they get so caught up in politics that they don't take action on the things that they control. And so much of this is out of our control right now. But what we can control is our own education, our own action, the things that are in our life right now that, are opportunities to take. And I think too often we get caught up on the things that we don't control, like the politics, that we don't take those opportunities. So.
Yeah. And when you let that fear like take over and you don't take control, like you're giving other people power, you're giving these politicians power over your life, and then nothing happens. So Ryan, you've been through a lot. We were kind of texting back and forth on some of the things to talk about. So like some of your challenges, some of your personal kind of like obstacles that you've had to overcome, like why don't we kind of just get into your background, kind of like your journey as an entrepreneur and in real estate?
Yeah. So I call myself kind of an accidental entrepreneur. I never intended to be an entrepreneur. Robert Kiyosaki says sometimes life pushes you around until you push back. And obviously God wanted me to be an entrepreneur because right when I graduated college, I kind of felt like I needed to take the path that most people take, safe and secure, get a job with benefits. I was a teacher. It wasn't like a very high paying job. And I married a woman who, we have 5 kids now. And we knew that we wanted to have a lot of kids. So I was like, I probably need to transition from teaching at some point so I could pay the bills. The kids don't get any cheaper, that's for sure. But about 2 years after graduating college and working in the corporate world, Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. That's when my wife was pregnant. I think she was like 8.5 months pregnant with our first child. And out the door went my thoughts of security. The school that I was working in was 6 feet underwater in New Orleans. And so the job was gone. The house was gone. We were, basically homeless for a couple weeks. We were living in her brother's like apartment on college campus of LSU with like 20 other family members. It was just ridiculous. She's one of 11 children, so it was like just a ton of people in this apartment. And so yeah, I mean, it was one of those wake up calls, like, hey, nothing in life is secure. Kind of coattailing on what we were talking about before. You think that things are under control, like really, you think you're secure. Life can very quickly pull the rug out from under you. So I actually didn't intend to be an entrepreneur, but nobody would hire me. So I went on like interview after interview, and I don't know if it was my face or what something they didn't like about me, and so no one would hire me. So I tried to start this business, failed miserably. Had a friend that I hired who is like an ex-drug addict. I was trying to help out, like everything like 101 don't do when you're starting a business. Don't like try to help somebody out. When you're, investing your money into something. But yeah, I mean, everything wrong I did, and I learned a lot of lessons from that. But I ended up getting this job selling copiers, which was, I don't know if you've seen that movie Office Space. Have you seen that? Or
yeah.
Where they take the copier in the backfield and beat it with a baseball bat. But that was pretty much, how people felt about me walking in the door unsolicited to try to sell them I hated it. I just hated the job, but I did learn a lot, about prospecting and numbers and stuff like that I then took to real estate. So I was driving home one day across the longest bridge in the world is the Causeway. It goes from New Orleans to Covington. And it's this very monotonous, like, ba-dump, 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 but dumb enough to just like make you really think, to the core of your soul, just like think. And if you're uncomfortable with yourself, it's a long time to be uncomfortable with your own thoughts. And on this particular day, after getting yelled at by a Catholic monk of all people for a copier that didn't work, that I had sold them, it's one of those things where, there could be 34 people involved in a transaction, but you're the only point person for the customer, and all 34 could screw up besides you, but you're the only point person for the customer. I'm sure a lot of people, if you've got a 9-to-5, could probably relate. And so I just got, chewed out, hung up the phone. I was like, man, what is going on in my life? I'm barely spending time with my kids and my wife. I'm walking in stressed. I wake up with anxiety. I'm fluctuating between this anxiety and depression. I'm feeling like a bad father. I'm feeling like a bad husband. And not only that, but the job still wasn't providing. Sure, I had benefits, but I had so many expenses at this point. I think I had 2 children with a third on the way. And I was like, something's got to give. And so I prayed, because I'm a praying person. I said, God, just show me, what it is that you want me to do. And this question popped in my head that really kind of changed my life. And it's, well, what would you do if money didn't matter? And so I thought, wow, if money didn't matter, I would, probably open up an indoor sports arena, or I would play music or something like that. I was big into like indoor soccer and indoor flag football. And so I hung up not hung up the phone, but, I got out of that conversation, and I called my wife and I said, hey, as you know, I'm just like miserable right now. What could you see me doing? Say we had like $1 million in the bank. What could you see me doing if money didn't matter? And, we'd never talked about this before. And without skipping a beat, she goes, I don't know, maybe like opening up an indoor sports arena or playing music or something. And so I was like, well, that's my cue. Long story short, very long story short, 3 years later, I had no money in my bank account. 3 years later, I used real estate as a tool to get financially free from that job and to position myself to where 3 years later, I was able to open up that indoor sports arena. It was a multi-million-dollar arena on the North Shore of New Orleans. Then I did a second one in downtown New Orleans. And just made the dream happen. It was literally a dream come true. But that all started with that question, because I think a lot of people, they don't move forward with whatever their gifts, talents, or passions are in life, because they think that they don't have the money to do it. And really what I discovered, there's a lot of channels, but what I discovered was through various real estate strategies, I was able to free my time. I was able to quit that job within a year. I was able to free my time and focus on the things that I wanted to do.
Oh man. So there's a lot here that I want to unpack. So real quick. So that question is really important. What would you do if money didn't matter? We have another whole episode on setting life vision. Gosh, I don't remember exactly what it was. It's Sean McCloskey. It was 004, maybe something like that, as far as the episode goes. But he talks, for more details on it, check out that episode. But he talks about how Walt Disney and the Disney company works. They have an Imagineering department who dreams up things. They dream up like, hey, I want to have like a roller coaster that doesn't fly, that flies. That's the roller coaster I want to build us for this theme park. And then they have an engineering department that basically says, hey, you're an idiot. A roller coaster can't fly. And then there's an implementation department that like has to put it all together, right? But the Imagineering department is not allowed to be connected to the engineering department. Because like when you're dreaming, when you're setting up your life, when you're setting up your vision and exactly what you want for your business, there's a time for engineering, but it's not when you're trying to set up exactly what you want. So I love that question, because a lot of times what happens is like, oh, I love to be a real estate investor, but I can't afford it right now. And then you stop dreaming. Well, that's not the whole point. The point of dreaming is to dream, right? So like giving yourself that runway of, okay, well, if money didn't matter for 6 months or 12 months, what would my business look like? What would my dream look like? And then when you set that, you now have something you can work towards. and some goals you can set, and you have an end point. Know where when you don't have that end goal, where do you get? You get nowhere because you didn't have a goal to get to, right? So I absolutely love that. So let's dive into, you said like, okay, it only took you a year to kind of build up some passive income to quit your job. Tell us more on that, dude.
Yeah. So, I mean, I used a variety of real estate strategies, and, to be honest, I kind of started, most people, they kind of start like as a realtor, and they think, well, I know that there's a way to make money in real estate. And so the first thing, like the lowest hanging fruit is, well, I'm going to go be a realtor. I don't recommend that to anybody because you spend so much money and so much time. Is it helpful? Yes. But there's a lot of other strategies that if you were to focus your time on, is probably a better implementation of that time. So actually before the hurricane hit, I had gotten my real estate license, and I remember it was just kind of a fruitless endeavor. Even as there's like 20 people looking for places to live, I remember walking into a family meeting of in-laws and giving them all the comps, from my real estate, MLS access, and saying, hey, this is what is on the market. And I remember them looking at me and then going back to their meeting, And so, I mean, it's one of those things where if you're talking about goal setting, I think that when people are starting out, they really need to think, what do I want? Do I want another job, or do I want passive income? Or do I want to, get quick nickel, or do I want to get slow dime? Am I really trying to get free time, or am I just trying to free myself from this other job? And those are very critical questions when starting out. To fast forward that year that I spent getting free, I used a combination of strategies, and that was wholesaling, lease options, and creative no money down deals. And basically what I would do is I would go out and look for the deal. And once I had a deal, then I had several arrows in my quiver that I could execute. If it was a creative finance deal, I could hold it and get passive income on, or I could wholesale it, or I could flip it, or I could lease option it. And so I just used a variety of real estate strategies, but people think it's complicated. It's really pretty simple. Like, just find the deal, and then from there you can organize it any way you want.
So how did so you mentioned you learned about kind of prospecting and kind of setting up metrics when you were doing the office space job. That's a great image. I'm glad you shared that. So how did you take that into finding the deal? How did you apply what you learned there?
Well, what we know, and I'm part of National Real Estate Mastermind. It's about $25,000 a year to join. It's everybody who owns 1,000 doors and more. And what we know after collecting the data all across the nation is that it's all about the numbers. And it pretty much comes down to 16, 3, and 1. Of every 16 people that you make an offer to, 3 of them will start negotiating with you, and 1 will end up a deal. So it was at that point, you never really know what's a deal until you start negotiating. At that point, I just knew, look, if it's 16, 3, and 1, then I just need to increase my numbers.
So one of the things we do when we're working with kind of like people we're mentoring and coaching is unbelievable, the amount of how difficult it is to get a new investor to make offers. Oh no, they won't want to do it. They won't like it. They won't do it. And I mean, there's an unbelievable amount of times in our careers, like my business partner, Ryan, one time had a property on the MLS. I think it was listed for like 600,000, and we ended up buying it for like 280, and it was listed on the market for 600K. And it's like, had he talked himself out of making that offer, we wouldn't have gotten that deal, and ended up being a slam dunk of a deal, right? But you don't know until you make the offer.
Absolutely. They say the number one rule in real estate is location, location, location. That's not true. The number one rule in real estate is make offers, make offers, make offers. And if you will not have success unless you are willing to go out and make offers. I heard someone else say, I don't know if I agree to this extent, but I heard someone else say, if you don't get an FU on your first offer, then you're not doing it right. But I mean, that's what it's about, is just making the offers and starting the negotiation.
So how do you, when you kind of do your offers, how do you normally structure it or do it?
So what I encourage people to make offers in a couple different phases. The first phase I call the soft offer, and it depends on what you're negotiating. So for example, right now I'm in the multi-million syndicated apartment space. So we're looking at, 100 plus units. And so we're negotiating, 16, to $8 million deals. And when you do that, you just you make the soft offer first to the broker. And that's basically like, hey, based on the NOI, the net operating income and the cap rate in the area, it looks like if I were to make an offer, it would come in at XYZ. Should I drop a letter of intent for that amount, or is there any information that I'm not aware of that would help me strengthen that offer? So that's kind of a soft offer. You could do that on the phone. You could do it via text. You could do it in an email. And I think that's important because I think a lot of people, one of the hangups is they think if I make this offer and it goes through, I'm immediately putting my money at risk, or I'm putting myself at risk legally. And that's not true in the soft offer phase. If it's a single family house, then I'll say, hey, based on the comps in the area, it looks like if I were to make an offer on this, it would kind of be in XYZ range. Do you think I should drop a letter of intent for that? And it just really gets the negotiation rolling. After you get past the soft offer phase, you go into the next phase, which is the letter of intent phase. And that's laying it all down on paper and formalizing it. And I think are you dealing mostly in the single family space?
That's mostly in our background. Yeah. Like up to maybe 8 units. Yeah.
So I think a lot of the hang up for some people is when I make offers, I typically make a cash offer or I'll make a creative financed offer. So it's basically, here's option A and here's option B. And you make them an offer and, you basically lay it out 2 offers at the same time. And I think the hang up for a lot of the people in the single family space is they don't know how to structure a creative financed offer. They know the general terms, but they don't know, is it a bond for deed, a deed in lieu, a land contract? Is it, a lease option? There's a lot of things that it's called, and there's a lot of legal terminology. So I encourage people just to write that letter of intent. Here's what we're agreeing to in general terms. And then you give it to an attorney and he can drop the offer. You give it to a title attorney. So those are the first 2 is soft offer, letter of intent. And the third and final is the purchase agreement. And that's where it becomes somewhat legally binding. As you know, you typically have 10 to 15 days to get out of it during the inspection period. So even after you are legally bound, you still have 10 to 15 days to do your inspections or find a cash buyer if you're wholesaling or whatever it is. But yeah, that's kind of the structure that I follow.
Yeah, that's great, man. Yeah, literally with our acquisition specialist yesterday, we were talking about doing this on every single deal and making it happen. We've traditionally been more cash offer first and not talk about owner financing or any of the other things that could potentially help the homeowner make a little bit more money. Okay, so let's go back into, so you had 16 offers, 3 negotiations, 1 will end up being a deal. So you're able to get yourself financially free in a year, which is really impressive, man, especially with you having 2-3 kids. So I'm guessing you did more than 16 offers. You did more than 1 deal that year, right? So how did you, take me back into what was going on in that year? How many offers were you making a week or a month? Do you recall?
Yeah, I mean, I probably made 16 a week. I got super aggressive with it. My strategy is I kind of started with the pre-foreclosures and driving for dollars. And whereas I should have been driving around selling people copiers, I was like, screw this. I just got to make this happen. So I drove around and looked for property. So I pulled up the pre-foreclosure list first and the tax lien list first. And I would just drive around and I used sticky notes. So a lot of people, they do like the mailing thing. I can tell you, if you've ever been into a foreclosed person's house, they've got a stack of mail that will go over your head. They don't open their mail. Even though it is successful for some people, I guess the trick is to send about 6 within a 2-week or 3-week time frame. But I didn't do that. And what I learned is I got more deals because I was able to knock on doors and talk to people and understand their situation, empathize with them, and start negotiations and save them from foreclosure. If I didn't save them from foreclosure, the other thing I did is I just applied for a bunch of 0% interest business credit cards. And so I got enough of those that I was able to play with that money at the foreclosure sale, because you have to have cash at the foreclosure sale. So I go to the foreclosure sale and I'd buy things in cash. I had a bank tell me that they would give me 75% of the loan to value. The loan to value on houses that I owned outright in cash. They didn't know I was buying it with a credit card or a conglomeration of credit cards. And so I would just buy these houses, fix them up, refinance it through the bank, get all that money back, pay off the credit cards, and then do it again.
How'd you figure that out?
I don't know.
Do you even recall like coming up with this, like almost feels like a scheme or something, but obviously it wasn't.
I mean, look, I was seriously motivated. I had a lot of pain in my life just from that job. And so I just kept on chasing the rabbit down the hole, and I kept on going after it and taking action. I mean, I really would have come down to is I took massive action out in the actual real estate game. I didn't just sit on the computer in a mastermind and go to classes. I did that too. But I did that in combination with getting out there and taking action. And I think it was just like a combination of those two things: educating myself, taking action on the education. It clicked in my head, I guess.
That's awesome, man. Good for you. So then you did enough deals and had enough rentals that boom, you look up one day and you say, okay, I'm full-time in real estate now.
Yeah. In this day and age, it's a lot easier, I feel. I mean, back then, there was, this was probably about 15 years ago. But back then, I mean, I needed about $5,000 a month in passive income in order to be financially free. And so that was a combination of small multifamilies, a combination of, some flipping stuff, some wholesale deals, combination of some single family lease options. And I got there relatively quick, but this day and age, you also have some very high cash flowing options with Airbnb. And so, working that short-term rental market, if there's a opportunity there, if I had that back then, I mean, I'd be, I would have quit maybe in 3 months. Who knows?
That's awesome, man. So so after you got into full-time, what happened next, man?
So after I got into it full time is when I started working on the arena. So a lot of time was spent on that indoor sports arena. Now we have both arenas had closed because of COVID. So, but that was 10 years. We had it. It was up for 10 years. It was an awesome asset for the community. As kids' first sports experience. We actually had proposals there and all kinds of stuff. Adult leagues. We served beer and, we had adult leagues. It was great networking. And I kind of pivoted about 5 years into owning the arena and still investing with real estate on the side, to where I was like, you know what? I actually have more fun not running the arena, but just owning the arena. So I got a general manager and just paid him. And so I was just the owner of the arena, and I could go back to doing what I really like to do and put deals together. So I started the buying bigger apartments and syndicating funds for it.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about kind of the syndications and how you do that. So so 5 years ago you started doing that. What was like your first deal like when you started doing that? Hey there, if you're looking to get the ultimate edge for your real estate investing company, go to dorseydeals.com/invest for more information. Just so you know, a high percentage of the people that we interview on this podcast are actually already Three Doors Network members. And our network members have a lot of extra resources. They have access to an online training vault with over 3 years worth of content in it. They have access to vendor savings like our Home Depot discount that's literally saved thousands of dollars for members. And we have a weekly group coaching call, and we have a lot of other great things as well as part of the Three Doors Network. So make sure that you check it out on doorstodeals.com/invest. So 5 years ago, you started doing that. What was like your first deal like when you started doing that?
So just kind of how I got into it is I had a friend that I graduated college with, and he was up in New York. He was a public school teacher, much like myself, was just cranking out the kids, left and right. His brother graduated from Harvard, and his brother was like, "Hey, let's blow up this apartment company." And he was like, "Sure, I'm poor as can be in teaching, chemistry in New York. So let's just, let's go after it." Well, within 10 years, in the same time frame that I was building this small, I was building the indoor arenas and small single family and small multifamily portfolio, they had grown a $1.4 billion apartment business. And so I kind of talked to him, and I flew down to Tampa Bay where he was living and learned the ropes, how it all worked. And the year after that, I had bought $30 million worth of apartments, real estate. So the trick with those is, really to make the numbers work. A lot of people think like, I'm not big enough to do that yet, or I can never get there. If you're capable of raising, if you've got about 25 grand of your own money and you're capable of raising at least 250, you can put together some partnerships. Even if you're capable of raising 100 grand, you could put together some partnerships on the general partnership side that will enable you to buy some larger apartments, like 62 units and up.
Why do you need the 25K? Is that like attorney fees and stuff to put the deal together, or like what do you need?
I always recommend it, because if you're raising money, no smart investor is going to invest in something unless you've got skin in the game. So if you've got some skin in the game, and that's what we do with all of our deals. So, and in fact, if I could make a quick plug, CFDL Capital is the name of our apartment company, and CFDLcapital.com is where people can go if they're interested in passively investing in some of the apartment deals that we do. But 25,000 is, that shows that nobody wants to lose 25,000, right? So that's the main reason for skin in the game. And when you have skin in the game, it helps you get investors.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, you can do it with no money, but I think it's a lot tougher.
So, okay. So you got together a group. How many people are in your first group that you got together to do your first complex with?
So our first group was, it started out as a $1.1 million raise. By the time we got done with the lending, it was like a $1.3 million raise. It was super stressful. But we had about, I want to say 11 people in that first group. And it was, it turned out to be a tremendous investment. I mean, we were at 5-year projections on revenue, in the first year alone. So, it was stressful raising those funds though, but once you did it, you're like, wow, I can't believe that we did that. And, let's do it again.
That's amazing, man. So then, I mean, it gets a little bit easier once you get that first one, because then you have those 11 people that are really happy with you. Maybe they have friends or whatnot, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, I tell everybody, if you've got a good deal, the money tends to follow. I mean, that with single family as well. So, I mean, we found some really awesome deals. We focused a lot of time, effort, and energy in analyzing and underwriting deals and making sure that they were, close to home runs, or we could conservatively call them close to home runs. We found a deal, for example, in Orange, Texas. It was 150 unit, and we got it at a great price per door. where Chevron is coming in and building one of the biggest petrochemical plants in the entire United States and adding, thousands of jobs to the area. There's not going to be enough housing to fit all those people. And so that deal, I want to say when we went live with it, it was a $2.4 million raise. And we raised that in less than 30 minutes. But a lot of that has to deal with the deals,
So what's have you had any mistakes in buying apartment complexes, like any losses or anything like that would be good to, and what you learned from it?
Sure. All of our apartments have gone pretty well. One thing that I would say that we never projected was a nationally publicized pandemic, and in combination with 2 hurricanes. So, for example, we've got 177 units in Nederland, Texas, 150 units in Orange, Texas. Both of them got hit by a hurricane twice this season, as well as because of COVID, they put a moratorium on evictions. So we had a bunch of people, once the stimulus ran out, they couldn't or they didn't want to pay rent anymore. And there was nothing we could do about it. And so we're still waiting to see what happens. I think in the long run, we'll actually make out like a bandit because I think there's going to be stimulus. There's also a loss of income that we get through insurance. But I would say that, our returns that we projected were conservative, 17 to 20% IRR. I would say in the future that we just probably build up a little bit more of a war chest to weather multiple disasters, whether it's hurricanes or pandemics, and just probably get a little extra, maybe 300 to 500,000 extra cushion in there, and maybe the returns are 15%, but it's completely comfortable running the asset.
So are you so as far as in the insurance goes, that's like a special apartment complex insurance that you get to? Okay.
Yeah. So, to give you an idea, in Orange, Texas, our they've got a special name for hurricanes. So it's like our deductible is like $350,000. But we were able to go in there and discover $2.4 million of damage. And just very simple fact, like, hey, all these refrigerators need to be replaced. Well, refrigerators over 150 units, that's like 300 grand right there. So, yeah, it's kind of an opportunity even on the insurance front to come out ahead. Being that, I'm from New Orleans and experienced Katrina, I know that it was a terrible tragedy for everybody that was here when it was happening. But everybody in New Orleans, I think, would agree that when the dust finally settled with the insurance, most people made out very well. They were better. They were better off than they were before.
So how do you keep like such a level head as you've been through these massive, like Katrina and now having apartment complexes during COVID? So like Ryan and I, we have about, what is it, about 15 vacation rentals, and those this year have really, really taken a hit. They've been kind of a thorn in our side. Like, how do you keep a level head as you're going through these painful things?
I exercise and I pray, and sometimes I drink. I think that's. I really don't have any advice. Surely by God's grace, I think. No other reason that I could think of.
Gotcha. Okay, so when you're looking at these deals, these apartment complexes, what do you what's a good deal to you? Like what's your buy box?
Yeah, so apartments, there's 4 different kinds. There's Class A, Class B, Class C, and Class D. Class A is like brand new. Class B is relatively new, and Class C is kind of built 70s, 80s. Class D is ghetto. I don't ever buy anything in the ghetto. No bulletproof vests. That's my philosophy. I don't need to be dealing with a security guard who got shot or, copper pipes being stolen. That's just not the risk that I'm willing to take with any investor money. Where the money point is in the class C. It's called the value add opportunity. That's where you can go in and renovate the units, do something that adds value to the tenant's life that you can garner a higher rent. So we look for areas that we can raise the rents by $200 per unit if maybe it's doing interior renovations, maybe it's putting on new roofs, maybe it's slapping some lipstick on a pig on the outside and doing some landscaping. One major value play that a lot of people do is they take out the washer and dryer and put the washer and dryer in people's actual apartments. That way they can watch Oprah and Ellen naked while they fold their clothes or whatever and they do their laundry, instead of like having to go back and forth between a laundromat. Then we'll take the actual laundry facility and we'll turn it into like a workout area, something that adds value to their life. Most people are willing to pay a little extra for that. And the people who don't pay extra, they leave. But just to give you an idea of how that works with cap rates, say you have a 200 unit. I don't know if everybody's got their calculator. So if you got 200 units and you just pulled in an extra $200 a month in rent, that's $40,000 a month in rent. Multiply that by 12. If you were able to, and that's why we look for a high unit count, because you could dramatically increase your wealth. So if you've got $480,000 in profit that you were able to do just simply by moving the washing machine into the apartments and gaining an extra $200 a month in rent, and say it's in an area where it's a 6 cap. So to get the value, just take the profit, that's the NOI, and you divide it by the cap rate. So 480 divided by a 6 cap means that you just improved the value of that apartment by $8 million. And so the formula, the blueprint with apartments is to go in, renovate, raise the rents, increase that NOI. And then what you do is you take that extra $8 million in this scenario, in this case, and you refinance it. We're typically able to do that within 2 to 5 years. So all the investors who invest their money, they get all of their money back through a refi, which isn't taxed because it's loan, it's not actual profit. So you get all your money back, and then you just hold the asset and you cash flow on it. So I compare it to like stocks. I mean, never would you buy Coke for $100, and then within 2 years they give you all of your money back, and then you continue to make money on the dividend of Coke. That's not the way it works. So it's a great wealth building strategy. That's why my people like my friend Robert Reynolds, who was a public school teacher, was able to do that strategy over and over again and build a $1.4 billion company. So that's the formula that we use. It's a value add opportunity apartments.
So when you refinance it, you're keeping the other partners in the deal. You're not like cashing them out and until you're taking ownership of the whole thing or anything like that.
Yeah. We basically pay them back and they continue to cash flow on it. And that's what we do. We kind of structure our deals to attract investors. So that's one of the things that we do. The other thing that we do is something called a pref return, a preferred equity return. So it might be like a 65-35 split. So at the end of the quarter, you split the cash flow 65% to the investor and 35% to the general partner. But what we do is we do like anywhere, depends on the deal, like a 6 to a 10 pref. That means, say at the end, you have $500,000 to distribute. The investor first gets a 6% to 10% return on their money. After that's paid, then the split happens, the 65-35 split. So we give the investors the first payment on any cash that's made until that amount is refied. Our incentive to refi is to get the investors paid off as soon as possible, so we don't have to pay them the pref anymore, and it's just a true split. Gotcha.
So when so the Class C, So let's kind of go back to this. So Class A, Class B, Class C.
Class
You're not necessarily talking about like the location could be a better location, but the property itself is a Class C property because of the exact property itself. So you
yeah.
in a real like a more of like a Class A type of neighborhood, but you find this Class C property, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and like our one in Orange is on a golf course. It's a very nice area. But you definitely want to look for some metrics when you're looking for those properties. Sorry, I'm plugging in my computer here. You definitely want to look into some metrics with those. So we always look for, are there hospitals in the area? Because economically, hospitals employ people and they don't really go away. And so it's not my personal philosophy to expand government, but we look for areas that have government jobs because government doesn't really go away, so that's adds stability in the area. We look for a diversification of tertiary industry. We look for areas that there's gentrification going on. So if it's maybe an older area, but people are coming in on the single family, they're rehabbing stuff. You see some of the new franchises coming in, food franchises. If there's Walmarts and Home Depot close, they typically do the feasibility for you and tell you if that area is a good, thriving area where businesses will stay and jobs will stay and people who pay rent will stay.
And you're doing this so how many different states do you have these complexes on?
So we're in Chicago, we're in Texas, we're in Louisiana. We've got some that we're negotiating in Kansas. We've got some in South Carolina. Sorry, I had to move to plug in my computer here. But yeah, I mean, we're all over the place. I mean, we look all over the place too in our program, the CFDL Capital program. We've got something called the 1,000 Door Tribe, and we have people all over the nation that find deals. And we underwrite those deals. And if they look good, then we'll actually invest with those people in those deals and raise capital for them.
Gotcha. So part of your group is teaching them how to find these type of apartment complexes. And then you have the financing already figured out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How many people do you have in the 1,000 Door Tribe right now?
We've got over 100 people in the 1,000 Door Tribe. Something that we really want to get good quality people. We really haven't marketed it too much, but we want good quality people that are capable of being a general partner. We're looking for more partners than, just people that are just looking for education. I mean, we offer all the education, but, we want people that take action. And there is a qualification, like you do have to have $25,000 to invest at least to be part of the program, because otherwise, we don't want you just bringing us deals and you've got no skin in the game. It helps people analyze the numbers a little better when they're investing their own money in it.
Yeah. Would you put your $25K into this? No. Okay. Well, I don't want it either. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. So, I don't really have, I can't think of really much else as far as questions goes. We have a few people here live on the call. If anyone has any questions, wants to discuss, kind of raise your hand or chat, and we can kind of put you on this as well. So, how many, how many millions worth of complexes now do you and your partners kind of own combined?
Right now, with CFDL Capital, we have over 50 million.
Okay.
Yeah. We're working on increasing that to over 100 million. The cool thing about apartments is that you have, once you get past 100 million, really at 50 million, you can do it, but it becomes easier. Once you get past 100 million, and it's one of those things where it just becomes a lot easier because you can get money from funds. So there's different funds out there like CrowdStreet. So for example, the Kansas City one that we're looking at, we essentially it's a $16 million deal, but we'd only have to raise 300,000 because some of these other institutions will come in with institutional money and fund the rest of it. So they'll fund the rest of the $8 million raise. So that's our next goal, is to get over 100 million in assets, just to make the fundraising easier.
Are you adapting your strategy at all since COVID's hit? Like, have you had to? I know it's impacted your current stuff a little, some, but has any of the numbers, any of the stuff changed in your due diligence?
Yeah, it's changed big time. So Fannie Mae, there's something called non-recourse lending that Fannie Mae does, the government does, Freddie Mac, where they love lending on these apartments, and they're lending you based off the financials of the apartments, not on your personal financials. And there's no recourse if you like. You don't have to declare bankruptcy, or you don't have to. They don't come after you personally. It's just a non-recourse loan, not personally guaranteed, basically. They, because of COVID, have gotten a little more nervous with lending. So whereas before we were seeing 80% LTVs, now they're at 65% LTVs in a lot of areas. We had a deal fall through in Lafayette, Louisiana, 123 unit there, just because they said, hey, we want 16, whereas we originally said 80% LTV, now we're only going to do 65% LTV, and we want 12 months to 16 months. I forget what it was with that one. It's different locations. It's either 12 to 16 months up front in mortgage payments. When you do that, the returns just go way down. When you're talking about, buying a $8 million complex, and you have to come up with, an extra $1 million to front the first, years of mortgage payments, the money just doesn't make sense. So what we're doing now is we're actually negotiating with sellers and saying, hey, this is for anybody that looks at your property. The numbers just aren't going to make sense. So why don't you give us a piggyback loan for that amount, that first year mortgage, and after the first year, Fannie Mae releases it. After the first year, we'll just give it back to you as soon as Fannie Mae releases it. And that's been helping our numbers, and that's what we've been working into our negotiations. But that's a major change.
So if I can call, absolutely it is. And if I can kind of just bring something to everybody listening on this, is attention. When you look at like a really resourceful, kind of like high performing individual like Ryan is, look at how he thinks on things. So he has a challenge, he has an obstacle, and it's not just like, oh, this is done, I'm now getting out of the apartment complex space because I have this new challenge. It's, well, do I go through the obstacle, or do I go above it? Do I go under it? Do I go around it? What do I need to do? How do I solve this problem? And like, I just love the Henry Ford saying, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. When you get to an obstacle and you just think, oh, well, it's done for me, I'm out, see you later. Like, this whole thing is about solving obstacles. This whole thing's about solving problems. And the people that do the best in real estate, and really across the board in business in general, the best entrepreneurs, they see that obstacle and they say, okay, well, how do I solve it? And sometimes it's just a matter of brainstorming and masterminding with other smart people and then coming up to a solution. Sometimes you can figure it out on your own, right? So when you went through this piggyback loan idea, it's a brilliant solution to kind of solve this problem. What did the homeowner, or the homeowner, shows you how residential I am, what did the apartment complex owner, how did they respond to that? They were just like, okay, I get it, like, I have to do this because I still want to sell the house? Or like, what was the feedback you got from them?
Yeah. So actually, before I answer that, I just want to coattail on what you just said about the obstacles. The really awesome thing about obstacles is that they keep out the competition. And if you could see the obstacle as, hey, those fences, those barriers aren't there to prevent me from doing this. It's to prevent everybody else who's not supposed to, that doesn't deserve this, to have a win like this. So I think that's a very important mentality to have, is just pivot from your obstacles and don't let it keep you from moving forward. But in this particular case, in the one in Lafayette, the guy said, I think he still got it on the market. Actually, he said, look, I'm just going to see if somebody's willing to take a regular bank loan and not a non-recourse loan, which nobody has. So he rolled the dice on that one, and it's still on the market. But we actually have two that we're negotiating right now, that they are, as part of the negotiation, they've already agreed to it, because they understand, like, yeah, look, I think it all comes down to, have you read that book by Chris Voss? I forget what it's called. Chris Voss used to.
Never Split the Difference.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Have you read that?
Yeah, we're actually we're talking about getting him on our podcast. We're going to try and get him on, but yeah, that's one of my favorite negotiation books, no question about it. Yeah.
And so, we just kind of bring that up in our negotiations with the sellers. We just say, hey, as the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are requiring 12 to 16 months up front. How am I supposed to do that and get my investors' returns? One idea that I can think of is if you were to hold that as long as Fannie and Freddie, they're saying that they're going to release it in 12 to 16 months. Would you be willing to hold that for us so that we can make this deal happen and we can make the numbers work for our investors? Because all of them are investors too, and they're a little more sophisticated than some homeowners that they think their house is worth this, but it's not because their dad built this, and they're emotional because their dad built this deck in the back or whatever. They know because they had to go through the same thing in getting investors. They know, all right, look, if the numbers don't work, they just don't work, And so part of our job is just showing them, being completely transparent, saying, here's where the numbers are. I just can't make this work unless you're able to do this. And so, yeah, we got 2 deals that we're negotiating right now that will probably go through with it.
And then it turns back to motivation. Like if they're not that motivated to sell, maybe your deal's dead. But if they're motivated enough to sell, they'll do the carry back they may do it for 3 or 4 years if they need to, if they're motivated enough to sell it. Right.
That's right. That's right.
So I asked a question if anybody had questions, and then I didn't listen. And you and I started talking. It looks like Brian's got something. Hey, Brian, I'm going to allow. Let's see here. So how important has follow-up been in your career? How important has follow-up been in your career?
With multifamily, the follow-up has not been important at all. In fact, I see it as something that kind of weakens the negotiation position. If a broker follows up with me, then it strengthens my negotiation position. After the initial soft offer or LOI is made. In single family and small multifamily, it's extremely important. I would say that probably 50% of the deals are had through following up. So I don't know.
I mean, our numbers are 80% actually.
Yeah.
So if you had one thing to do different in your career, what would it be?
That's a good question. I tell everybody this. I wish that earlier on somebody would have told me the difference between investing and speculating. And investing is where you have some, if not all, known outcomes. So speculating is where you're just kind of guessing. And I'll give you a perfect example. This place where I'm sitting in, this was a multi-million-dollar building in downtown Covington that I bought through creative financing. And just because you can doesn't mean you should. I bought it with no money down, but I was like, you know what? I can fill this place with co-working. Co-working was like a new thing. So I rolled the dice and gambled on co-working, and it's empty. Right. So we actually had a year, me and my business partners, where we were losing, a good $3,000 per month on this, great deal that we own or financed. It's because we speculated. And if we had taken that money and invested in apartments, for example, where apartments for the most part, what's coming in, how it's coming in, you already see that there's been, the last 12 months, it's brought in, 1 point whatever $1 million. So I wish that someone would have told me the difference between that early on. Now, I just want to give a caveat to that. The more like in your single family program, the less you're speculating. So if you're learning how to do a CMA and to price things per square foot, if you're looking at, say you're flipping a house or wholesaling a house, and you're looking at a house and you're looking at reliable comps and you're learning how to analyze that, then it's less of a speculation. What I think that the problem that people get into in real estate is they say, I'm going to buy this because I think the market's going up. Don't ever buy because you think the market's going up. You don't control the market, but buy based off of what it's done in the past. And that's investing and not speculating.
Yeah. And so what I love about what he said, and to just piggyback on it, there's that age old saying that there's riches in the niches. Yeah. Like, just because a co-working space for Ryan might be a horrible idea because he's more of an apartment complex guru, right? I hate that word guru. I'm sorry for calling you that, because he's an apartment complex expert. Let's use a better word. Doesn't mean that co-working is like a bad thing. It just might mean that it's not for Ryan. And that's one of the beautiful things about having a strong network, kind of like what we have, is you get people around you that have niches, that have expertise, and you don't have to do everything. Let them pass along a referral to them if you come across a good co-working space deal, and just kind of let them deal with it. And you focus on becoming a subject matter expert in the niche that's you're kind of designed for. And I think that there's a little bit of God tells you what you should do. If you kind of, personally, like when you get excited about doing something, like some people get crazy excited about designing flips and making something beautiful for homeowners. I get nervous. I have a hard time finding matching socks, right? Like when I wake up in the morning, designing flips is not for me, but that doesn't mean it's not for somebody else. So like just kind of finding what your passion is, finding what you're interested in, and then focusing on that, becoming world-class at that one thing. And then, I think that's one of the biggest things I see people struggle with is like every time I see someone talented and smart that runs into a bad deal, almost every time it's because they got out of their expertise. They got out of what they're really trying to have their core focus of their business be. And that's what we've done. That we did some, we're losing a ton of money on a new construction deal. New construction is not our business. That's not what we're good at. We're losing a ton of money on a deal because of that, because we decided to go after a shiny object. Right.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
So, all right, guys. Well, we are right at time. I really appreciate you, Ryan. So one more time, the name of kind of your company and like the couple websites where people can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So the best website for like if you're interested in passively investing in apartments is cfdlcapital.com. So it's Cashflow Dad Life, cfdlcapital.com. And then if you're interested in investing and learning how to analyze and underwrite larger apartments, for the kind of what am I saying? Not beginner investor, but the moderate investor or the investor that wants to increase their knowledge in the apartment area, then we've got something called the 1,000 Door Tribe. And so you can find information on that at 1000doortribe.com.
All right, Ryan. Well, hey, I really appreciate you, man. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing so much valuable wisdom and nuggets that you've learned over the years. Okay, so for this particular episode, go to doorstodeals.com/027. Again, that's doorstodeals.com/027. Go out, live your purpose, and above all else, go after your dreams. Take care. Thanks for tuning into this show. For more episodes and resources that will unlock Doors to Deals, check out our website, doorstodeals.com.